Hey guys, just bear with me one moment. So we don't have the microphone again today, which I do apologize for. It's been a really crazy and hectic day for me, but it was a good day. And I'll tell you why. Because it was supposed to rain pretty much all day today, going into tomorrow, and it doesn't look like it's raining, so thank God for that. I want to wish you all a very happy Thursday. So welcome back to Walks on Wall Street. Today is June 22nd, 2023. It's about 9:09 p.m. Eastern time here, and we were reporting live from Central Park. Central Park South, to be exact. I think this is 7th Avenue. You can actually see Times Square a little bit down there. Now, it's going to be a shorter than normal stream, probably about an hour tonight. But I think there's a lot to talk about. Now, if we do a quick review of what we spoke about yesterday, we did a little bit of a review of where we're at in terms of monetary policy in the country. So I think it's appropriate to quickly review that. Obviously, at the last FOMC meeting, the Federal Reserve decided not to hike interest rates. So that means the Fed funds rate remains at a target range of 5% to 5.25%. Now, we got some additional context yesterday as Fed Chairman Jerome Powell was testifying in front of Congress. And I think the signal is pretty clear that the Federal Reserve is still absolutely steadfast at their one official goal, which is to get inflation back down to their target of 2%. Now, if you listen to the testimony, I would highly advise to do that. I think there's some recordings of it on the Federal Reserve's website as well as YouTube. I think CNBC also broadcasted that live, but it was pretty much consensus out of all of the voting members. Well, I'm not going to say all, but I will say the majority of the voting members of the Federal Reserve. They're all in agreement that we need at least one more interest rate hike in the cycle. So that's sort of turning heads on Wall Street. If you look at futures markets, it's pricing this in right now. We're probably going to get another 25 basis point rate hike in July. Now, if that happens, that's going to bring the Fed funds rate to 5.25% to 5.5%, which is in line with consensus of where most economists and analysts on Wall Street project where it'll be the peak in the hiking cycle. Another thing we're going to talk about tonight is the National Association of Realtors just released their existing home sales for May. And I think we're going to be pretty surprised as we go through this data. Once again, if you want to follow along with us live, just go to the National Association of Realtors website, and the first link on their webpage right now is the existing home sales report for May. Now, one of the things we're seeing is a lack of inventory. We're going to talk about that. Again, this is the existing home sales market, not the new home sales. We'll talk about that later. Prices are coming down a little bit, but it's very regional in nature. So we'll explain what that means. As we've been reviewing every single month, when the National Association of Realtors reports the existing home sales report, we've been seeing a lot of strength in the Northeast. We've been seeing a lot of strength in the South. However, the further west you go towards the, I should say the California region in the United States, the more weakness you see in terms of pricing pressure. So we'll talk about that as well as do a quick review on the median home sales price in the United States. Lastly, we'll finish off the stream talking about some foreign equity markets. I think there's some interesting potential investment opportunities in Japan. We'll take a look at the Japanese Nikkei index, which is getting pretty close to its all-time record high that it reached all the way back in 1989. So think about that. Equity markets in Japan haven't reached its all-time record high since 1990. Talk about it. Let me go ahead and put the camera down. I'll put my laptop away. We'll say hello to everybody in the chat. and we'll get the stream started. Thank you all for being here. All right, now the big question is, did you guys see any rats when we were doing the introduction? Usually this is prime location for the Walks on Wall Street rat camera. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. But I see Brian. What's up, Brian? New York Ruben is here, says what's up. Good to see all of you. British Gray from Tampa, Florida. Horatio Snipes is in the chat. Anthony Williams, the one and only UniJ23 is here. Always a pleasure to see you. I see photos from around New York. Happy Thursday. I bet you're happy that the rain doesn't appear to be hitting New York. It was supposed to be pouring rain all today, which it's not. I see Spencer's here. What's up, Spencer? Marilyn from Murray Hill. Good to see you. Sabrina Fair, welcome. Victor. I see Abdullah, Muhammad, Mr. Hunt is here. Lynette Jackson. Tom, Barry. Good to see you. Sally is here. Yeah, Marilyn. So Marilyn's comment, I think we'll just quickly address that before we start. Yeah, I think we got official reporting from, what was it, the U.S. Navy and the U.S. Coast Guard, that the submerged individuals who were on their way to explore the Titanic, I guess the submarine unfortunately imploded, which is just such a horrible story, such a horrible fate, very unfortunate. So 100% thoughts and prayers are with that family. It's just such a tragedy, and you know, the story got so much national attention, I think global attention too. I could only imagine what that's like, you know, being down there. I don't know, I'm extremely claustrophobic, so I don't think I could ever do something like that. I saw some footage and saw some photographs of this submersible, and the thing didn't even look like it could possibly fit 5 people, but somehow they managed to get 5 individuals in there. Yeah, it's kind of a sad event, really, really horrible. You know, last night I was, after we were streaming, I was watching some videos and I was listening to the press conference of the gentleman that was running the Coast Guard, and they seemed pretty upbeat and pretty positive that they were going to be able to perform a rescue operation, but I think now it's just probably a recovery, which is unfortunate, which is really, really unfortunate. But everybody, we are live here at Central Park South. You are now looking at the Deutsche Bank Towers. It's a beautiful night right here on Billionaires Row. This is 220 Central Park South. I see DM is here. Says hello everybody, and Tom. What's up, DM? Always a pleasure to see you. Yeah, Richard Vogel says the carbon fiber instead of the steel. I'm not an engineer, but I saw so much stuff on the internet. I'm gonna try not to read it. I'm gonna try not to pay too much attention to it. It's disheartening, and you know, it's sad for sure. Hey, Dan Zhang, what's up? This is Tom. Patrick Bet-David announced today that he has officially become a minority owner of the New York Yankees. Really? Holy crap. Wow. Congratulations to him, man. You know, I've met him in person one time. Wow. He's a part owner of the New York Yankees. That's wild. I didn't know that. Dan, I didn't know that, man. Thank you for putting that in the chat. That's huge. Man. Just imagine being able to walk around and say, yeah, I own part of that team. That's insane. You know, it seems as if over the past couple of years, well, I'm not going to say just the past couple of years, I'll say the past decade, it's almost starting to become like a trophy in a way, right? If you're a big billionaire or super rich guy or girl, right? It seems like one of the goals is to own a team. I think Chamath, does anybody know this? I don't know. I'm not a big sports guy, to be quite, you know, honest with you guys. But I think Chamath Palihapitiya owns a stake. I don't know basketball, but the most successful basketball franchise ever, I think. He owns at least a part of the stake. Is that true? Hey, Life, Liberty, and Guns is here. What's up? This is Good Evening Tom. Welcome. SME Media, Ken Glass. Good to see you guys. Cosmo says, which team are you going to buy? You know, Cosmo, I was thinking about, obviously you've probably heard the news that Leo Messi is coming to the United States. Leo Messi turned down over $1 billion. Imagine that, right? Turned down over $1 billion from Saudi Arabia to come play in the United States in Miami. Now, number one, to be in the financial position to be able to turn down over $1 billion is just unbelievable in itself. But I think it also shows just how attractive America is to the rest of the world, right? I mean, at some point, Leo Messi is arguably one of the most successful athletes on planet Earth, right? So he's made a ton of money already. I mean, he's probably close to being a billionaire already. So, you know, I was reading some of the reports about it, and his decision was really primed in that he wants a better life for his family, right? If he signs with Barcelona again, he's going to be traveling all over the place. His kids are not going to have a stable school to go to. So he says, you know, the United States and Miami provides more of a simplistic lifestyle, right? You're not traveling all over the world. You're sort of just traveling stateside, playing soccer, which I think is pretty cool. But it's awesome to have him in the United States, in the MLS. Now, the bad news is I think the starting ticket price, and you guys could, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the starting ticket price since Messi announced that he's coming to Miami went from like $27 to like $600. That's just like for an entry level ticket. So I don't think I'll be going there anytime soon. But look, if tickets come down to a more reasonable price, I'll spend $200 to go see Messi play, 100%. But those are like New York Rangers prices, you know, $500 a ticket. That's kind of crazy. I don't know. Hey, John, good to see you. Elliott Wave Reviews is Tom Chamath is part owner of the Golden State Warriors. Ah, that's the team. You're right. Yeah, with Steph Curry. I only know Steph Curry. Yeah. And, you know, Chamath was one of the first guys at Facebook. He was one of the original people at Facebook, made a fortune. Now, I like Chamath, but I've been a little bit critical of him as of late, and I think you guys all know why. If you've been watching Walks in Wall Street over the past 2 years, ever since this SPAC mega boom came out during the pandemic, when it seemed like every VC guy or private equity guy, and just Wall Street in general, just started launching all of these nonsensical SPAC deals. For those of you who don't know what SPAC stands for, it stands for Special Purpose Acquisition Company, and it's another way, right, similar to an IPO, for a company to become public. But I think the structure of a SPAC does a massive disservice to investors, particularly retail investors, and just benefits the people who are doing these deals, right? Like the mega investment banks and founders of these companies. Now, I won't go on a big SPAC tirade, but one of the things that I'm very critical of in that particular structure is there's really no regulatory oversight about your financial projections. So there's a lot of lying that goes on, right? There's a lot of BS. It's hard to prove that somebody's BSing, but if you're familiar with the markets, if you know how to analyze a company, you know, I'm sure you guys remember, right? You guys are all over this too. During the pandemic, it seemed like every other day there was a different SPAC. And if you would look at the reportings, they'd be like, yeah, we're expected to, you know, reach profitability by 2023. We're expected to double our revenues by 2026. And for anybody who really knew anything about, you know, these companies and financial projections, you knew it was just a total lie, total deception. And now look where a lot of these SPACs are now. The majority of them are either out of business or trading well below the share price in which they went public. And if you look at a lot of the insider trades, the vast majority of the owners or the institutions cashed out and transferred that liquidity to a lot of retail investors who are watching CNBC and things like that. So I think there's a little bit of an ethics lapse there, but obviously nobody cares, unfortunately. Hey, Pot of Gold's SPAC was an experiment and it had to be done by someone to try it out. Well, I mean, SPACs have been going on for a long time, right? SPACs have been going on for a long time. Again, the problem that I have with it is a lot of the companies who did go public via SPAC, the companies were nonsense. And look, all of these big investors, they're smart people. They're not stupid people, okay? If I'm smart enough to understand that all of these financial projections are nonsense, and I'm not a big multi-billionaire, well, obviously all of these people just knew it was nonsense, and it was all a big money grab. And additionally, I don't want to make the whole stream about SPACs, but I'll say one more thing. Goldman Sachs is getting out of the business because the SEC came and something along the lines, you guys could look up the story, but the SEC said that the investment banks could be held personally liable if these SPAC deals go belly up. Goldman Sachs the next day said, look, we're getting out of that business. We're not doing any more of those deals. So what does that tell you, right? If you look at investment banking revenues and fees during 2020 and 2021, Wall Street investment banks, right? I'm talking about like the Goldman Sachs, the Morgan Stanleys, BNP Paribas, the big mega banks, JP Morgan Chase. They were doing so many deals. Okay, the deal flow was sick during the pandemic and about a year, 2021-22. Record investment banking fees, record underwriting fees, right? And that's how investment banks make money, is from fee income. You generate deals, which generates fee income for the bank. So they'll do these deals all day. They don't care because they don't, you got to look at, I call it follow the money. You got to look at, do the deals, they'll underwrite the deals, they'll take all the management fees from bringing these SPACs public, but they don't care about the performance of how this stock trades once it's public. They could care less because they've already have their fee. So, hey, Austin City Limits, good to see you. Dan is here. What's up, Dan? You know what I think we'll do today, guys? This is 432 Park Avenue all the way in the distance. It's looking beautiful tonight. We're on 8th Avenue. Let's try to go as far as we can to the west side without it being too windy. Very, very seldom do I ever take you guys all the way to West End Avenue. And I want to show you just how different it is. Just over the past 5 years, tons of new development, tons of new residential, as well as office space. I think it'd be cool to check it out. Fun Feeds, what's up? Yeah, Photos from Around New York says across the street is the Hearst Tower. Indeed it is. Have you ever been in here? Photos, I've never been inside. Very unique building. We're just waiting to cross the street here. Dan says, Tom, what do you think about commodities ramping up in the next few months? I'm going to ask that question right back at you because I want to know what you think about this. But let's talk about that because that was actually one of the things on the action items list to talk about tonight. And I'll tell you why. So Dan's asking about commodities. We'll talk about it, but I want to start off with crude, specifically crude oil. Okay. Let's go down one more because I think there's a dead spot here. But before we do that, if you look all the way in the distance, that's the New York Times building. Very famous building in Times Square near the Port Authority bus terminal, which should be avoided at all costs. But there's also an enterprise software company in that building called Datadog. Ticker symbol is DDOG. And I think they're actually hiring enterprise account executives for anybody who's interested. A good friend of mine works there. But something interesting with crude oil, I think, and you guys could just look this up yourself. If you look at the crude oil futures contract, ticker symbol CL, you'll see we're trading below $70 again. I think we're trading like 69.10, something like that. Maybe somebody could drop the actual price of crude in the chat just so we have an exact variable to go off of. But look, crude oil topped in May of 2022. I think it was May 14th to be exact, was the exact date where we had that massive blow off top in crude oil. And ever since then, we've pretty much called it here on the stream, many of you, to say, look, that's the end of it. That's the blow off top in crude, and we're probably going to correct. And we've been in this massive correction in crude ever since. The XLE has fallen under pressure. And this comes around the same time where you saw all of these articles, right? Who in the chat remembers these articles about Berkshire Hathaway and Warren Buffett making massive investments into Occidental Petroleum? Now, Occidental Petroleum trades under the ticker symbol OXY. And I said, look, Warren Buffett is way smarter and is a better investor than I'll ever be. But I think he could be getting this trade wrong. And so many retail traders followed Warren Buffett into this Occidental Petroleum trade. And the stock is breaking down quite horrendously. I think it's trading around $56 a share now. And obviously, it's very dependent on the price of crude oil. So I don't know. I think this cycle in crude oil is done. I think we'll probably just chop around in this trading range here. But I don't know. Do you guys think we'll have this big rally back to, $100 a barrel, $130 a barrel for crude? Any thoughts there? I'm a little bit skeptical. I do not think so. Hey, Bree Grams, what's up? Good to see you. Thanks for joining us. Michael Joseph says crude is at $69.47. This is a Wingstop here. Wing is a publicly traded company under the ticker symbol WING. This is relatively new. This actually used to be like a coffee shop slash, not really bodega, but more so along the lines of like a coffee shop. I used to go there a lot when I was in college. But Wingstop's and other stocks trading near new record highs and 52-week highs. Once again, the ticker symbol is WING, W-I-N-G. West 55th Street and 8th Avenue. Very seldom do we go over here. It seems pretty busy, which is good news for the city. Hey, Lex S., good to see you. Thank you for watching. Jafet Perez says Amazon made a deal with an AI company. I did see that. And now here's the question. Do we think that Amazon is going to spin off the AWS business? I think that's the question. Because Andy Jassy, who is the CEO of Amazon now that Mr. Bezos is no longer here, there's a really good follow on Twitter. Jim Osman, I believe his name is. He wrote a really good piece in Forbes. He's a contributor to Forbes. I think I retweeted that article on my Twitter page if you follow @WalksWallStreet on Twitter. And it lays out a thesis for a potential spin-off of AWS. Maybe. We'll see. Dan Zangs, Tom, what are your thoughts on the Bank of England raised its interest rate to 5% from previous 4.5%? I think it's to be expected. Usually central banks around the world follow the lead of the Federal Reserve, which just so happens to be our central bank here in the United States. If you look at, and Dan makes a good point, right? Because it seems as if the financial world could be so laser focused in on the United States all the time. What is the Federal Reserve doing? What is Fed Chair Jerome Powell doing? But that's only one part of the story, right? There's many, many other central banks around the world who just so happen to all be in major tightening cycles, right? Bank of England, I think the bank in Australia just raised their interest rate. the ECB with Christine Lagarde, the only central bank, does anybody want to guess? Well, I should say one of the many, or I should say one of the few central banks that's bucking the trend as it relates to a quantitative tightening cycle opposed to easing. Does anybody want to take a guess at who that is? Because we're actually going to talk about that particular market tonight. So as everybody, Teresa Diaz, I see you in the chat. TD, good to see you. As the U.S. Central Bank, the Federal Reserve is raising, is the Bank of England, as the ECB, Australia, pretty much all over, right? In Argentina, they're raising rates, which is a little wild. Yeah, Dan hit it right on the head, and so did Brendan O'Brien. The BOJ, the Bank of Japan. That is correct. You know, and that could potentially be, right? So for those of you who don't know, the BOJ, the Bank of Japan, is essentially continuing technically with, you know, QE. They're definitely not doing a tightening cycle like the Federal Reserve and many of the other central banks over the world. They're actually continuously buying debt, expanding their balance sheet, while the Federal Reserve is actually shrinking their balance sheet and hiking interest rates. And that could potentially be a part of the reason why Japanese equities have actually outperformed. You know, if you look at the Japanese Nikkei index, right? Nikkei 225, that indice topped, I believe, in 1989. And the Japanese bubble, the stock bubble in Japan, essentially blew up. And it's been 2 decades now, and it has yet to reach the new all-time record high that was set in the late 1980s. Kind of crazy, but Japanese equities have been on a tear. So I would keep an eye on that. I would keep a very, very close eye on that. And maybe you could say there's a correlation between the entire world, right? So if you think about from a global macro perspective, the entire world is going through a tightening cycle while the Bank of Japan is still hammering on the gas and juicing their equity market. So I don't know. I think there still could be some pretty good returns. I'll say this. If the Japanese stock market breaks through a new all-time record high, the measured move on that is significantly higher than where it is now. Hey, Hawaii is here. What's up, Hawaii? Good to see you. Hawaii, I sent you that video last night about that shark attack. If you guys haven't seen that, the craziest video I've ever seen this year by far. There were these two, not to get off track, but this video it's sick. You guys got to watch it. And I think this just happened recently. There was, I think it was some fishermen off the coast of Hawaii, but they were fishing in a kayak, and this tiger shark mistakes one of the kayaks for an injured seal and totally goes after and attacks the guy, almost pulls him in the water. Wild video. And I will not be doing any fishing in a kayak off the coast of Hawaii anytime soon, my friends. Carlos, Tom, what financial books do you recommend? You know, one of my favorite books is called How to Make Money in Stocks by William J. O'Neill. And William J. O'Neill, unfortunately, he passed away about 2 weeks ago. We lost a legend on Wall Street, but he is the founder, or was the founder, of Investors Business Daily and O'Neill Securities, which he actually sold the company, I think, for about $250 million, I think $250 million to Dow Jones, or News Corp. So Wall Street Journal, Barron's, and Investors Business Daily are all under the same umbrella now. But I think that's a great book. How to Make Money in Stocks by William J. O'Neill. I would also read Common Sense Investing by Jack Bogle, or John Bogle. And he just so happens to, unfortunately, he passed away as well, but he was the founder and CEO of the Vanguard Group. So you could, if you think about index funds, low-cost indexing, tracking the S&P 500 and major equity indices, he was essentially the pioneer on Wall Street to essentially allow retail, a product, to essentially own the market as opposed to buying a mutual fund with egregious fees, right? If anybody remembers, back in the day, if you wanted to purchase a mutual fund on Wall Street, you would get hit with a 5% front-end load fee, a 5% back-end load fee, and like a 2% annual management fee. With the introduction of Vanguard and indexing to the S&P 500, I think some index funds now are free. I think Fido or Fidelity has some index funds that have no expense ratio, have no fee. So I would read those two books. I would start off there. Hey, Shorts, Clips, Reels says, what do you think about the rising crime rate in New York City since 2020? I think crime is improving. I think things are getting better. However, I think it would be dishonest to say that crime is not a problem. But generally speaking, the city is safe. Are there incidents on the subways and predominantly in the outer boroughs? Yeah, there are. However, from what I see on the ground floor here in New York, I do strongly believe that the city is working, particularly the mayor, to get crime under control. And I've been seeing some positive changes, so I'm optimistic about it. I think we have a long way to go. But I'd say over the last maybe 5-6 months, from what I see, things have improved. Yes, Me Media says the New York City crime rate goes up, but over the long term, it definitely goes down. I mean, you can't even compare this to like the 1970s and 80s, right? I mean, I was born in '95, so I don't really have anything to compare it to, but I'm sure many of you in the chat were around in the 80s and in the 90s in New York, and it's not even close. Hey, Justin S. is here. Good evening, everybody. What's up, Justin? We are actually fast approaching New York City's Restaurant Row. We are on the corner of West 51st Street and 8th Avenue. It's a beautiful night in New York. But I'll tell you this, one of my favorite Italian restaurants, for those of you who are watching, that are gonna visit New York and want an affordable, fun, and really good place to go, check out this restaurant called Becco, B-E-C-C-O. I think we'll probably have enough time to walk past it today, but I always give that restaurant a shout out. Hey, Sunshine After Rain is here. Says, I hear the 70s were wild. Yeah, for sure. Look, I think, a lot of the incidents, right, and I don't like to ever downplay crime, because, a lot of people say, oh, it's just 1 or 2 murders. Well, those are people that are behind those murders, right? So it's important to not, downplay that. But if you look at the amount of murders that have happened over 2021 and compare that to the 70s, it's not even close, which is good news, but it's never good news for the crime to go up, right? I think that's unacceptable, but it's going to take time to fix that. But I think the city is committed to fixing that, and I'm optimistic it's going to improve. But generally speaking, this is what I always say about New York. Just have normal basic wherewithal and core competency to have situational awareness. If you have basic situational awareness, you're gonna be just fine, I promise. Hey, Steve Gonzalez, what's up? Says Tom, you should also try Ruberosa, another great Italian restaurant in Little Italy. Let me take a screenshot of that. Somebody sent me an email that said a famous Italian place in Manhattan is now going to be opening in Miami, which is good because I spend a lot of time there too. Joan K, good to see you, Joan. Teresa Diaz, welcome. Brendan O'Brien says 70s New York City spawned serious cultural output. Bottomless Coffee says Little Italy is seriously underrated. I agree. And, you know, Bottomless Coffee, here's the thing about Little Italy that's actually a little bit every year. Oh, I was getting excited for a moment. This is Carnegie Diner and Cafe. I thought the Carnegie Deli reopened and relocated. It doesn't seem to be, though. But yeah, the Little Italy in Manhattan is actually getting smaller and smaller every year, you know, due to high rents and things like that, is actually pushing a lot of the original Italian places out of the city to the outer boroughs, Long Island as well. So yeah, I mean, you got to enjoy Little Italy while it's still there. It's crazy to say that, but it's true. San Gennaro's Feast, I'm looking forward to that. However, San Gennaro's Feast is a pretty penny. I think I told you guys I went last year and the prices were just ridiculous. I think it was like 20 bucks for sausage, peppers, and onions. 20 bucks. But I'll still pay it. I'll still go. I try to, you know, support the local businesses here in New York. I think it's important. All right, 2 more blocks until Restaurant Row, my friends. Hey, Melee is here. What's up, Melee? Good to see you. Coral Carpenter's here. Monica B says hi, Tom. Good to see you, Monica. Thanks for being here. So I'm seeing a lot of comments about Amazon. Amazon actually had a really good day today. I think Amazon hit a 52-week high. And, you know, one of the, I think we'll just quickly cover this. One of the, I would say, the detractors, if you were going to argue that it's not a new bull market, a lot of analysts, portfolio managers on Wall Street have been arguing that, you know, this market rally has only been led by a handful of stocks, by like 8 stocks. That narrative is not necessarily true anymore. You got to be monitoring this by the day. And if you look at the percentage of stocks trading above the 200-day moving average, that's improved a lot. Now, one of the things that I'd like to see and that I'm watching for, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I think it's appropriate and important to watch for, is some of the smaller caps like Russell 2000. If you look at ticker symbol IWM, which is the ETF that tracks the Russell, you got to see a little bit of, you got to see the Russell catching a little bit of a bid here. Now, one of the main issues why small caps have really been getting crushed is because we are living in an environment of high inflation. But inflation's actually coming down, which is good news. So over the next couple months, if inflation continues to decline, I think you could possibly see some of these smaller caps catching a little bit of a bid. This is the FDNY Firehouse here. And there's actually an NYPD mounted unit coming down the street. This is kind of cool. Usually these guys are only near Central Park. Sometimes I see them outside of Penn Station. Very seldom do I see them here, actually. This is the NYPD mounted unit. Hey, Paul Burnell. What's up, Paul? This is Amazon taking advantage of any AI technologies. I feel like Bezos would have been ahead of the curve on AI. Well, I think there was some breaking news on Wall Street today that Amazon purchased an AI company, which is supposedly going to integrate with AWS to help clients build out their own AIs. I saw a brief headline on it on Bloomberg. I was so busy today I couldn't look into it, but anybody in the chat have additional information or detail on that? I think they just announced that today. I think we got 2 more blocks, guys, and then we will officially reach New York City's Restaurant Row, which is right off of Times Square. Michael Joseph says, people probably worry about IWM, not recession-proof if there's a hard landing. True. But again, I mean, you know, a lot of people, to sort of play devil's advocate, there's been so many analysts calling for a recession. I think we may have already had it and coming out of it, because, I mean, just look at all the metrics, right? We got non-farm payrolls out at the beginning of the month. 339,000 new jobs created in the United States. And the unemployment rate is at the lowest level since the 70s, almost in history in this country. We have some of the lowest rates of unemployment in this country on record. So if you think about, the next 10 years, what AI is going to do to increase operational efficiencies and to expand profit margins, right? So one of the worst things about the inflationary environment we went through is we had a little bit of a burst in earnings where profit margins actually expanded because companies were raising prices to account for their cost increases. But then you've seen slow and steady margin compression and margin erosion from many of these big S&P 500 companies. I think the best example that we could talk about is probably Tesla, right? Look at Tesla's gross margins. Tesla's claim to fame has really been their gross margins were 30% plus. Now they're in the low 20s. I think they may have cracked the teens, right? Now they may expand again, and they probably will, but these inflationary pressures have been doing real wonders for margin compression. I can't believe how many people there are here tonight for a Thursday night. 46th Street and 8th Avenue, tons of people. And they don't all appear to be tourists either, guys. Life, Liberty, and Guns is what about the labor force participation rate? So that's a very good point. Life, Liberty, and Guns makes a very good point. The labor force participation rate has still not yet recovered from pre-pandemic levels. I'll say that again. The labor force participation rate in the country has still not recovered from pre-pandemic levels, which is not good. Let's just say that. That's a good point. All right, so we are on Restaurant Row. I want to take you guys past Becco, so we'll do that now. Maybe there'll still be some outdoor dining setups here. You never know. Now, during the pandemic, pretty much half this street wasn't really closed down, but there was no parking at all to be had on the street. It was all outdoor dining setups to accommodate for the virus, right? Here's one right here. But you're actually seeing the majority of them being taken down. This street used to be lined with these outdoor dining setups, but almost all of them are gone now, guys. Look at that. That's crazy. Literally, this entire street was outdoor dining setups. Keith says, Tom, what does a tourist look like? You could see it in their eyes, man. You could see it in their eyes. I guess that is kind of a funny comment, right? I love these sort of original, beautiful brownstone-like steps. Look at that door. That's probably one of the original doors to the building. Love the wood on that. Hey, Shady901 is here. Thank you for joining. Yeah, Restaurant Row in Manhattan is a really nice place to come. Now, it's in a very high traffic area, right? So many people don't like that. But I think if you're a tourist or you're just trying to have a good time, experience New York City nightlife, I think this is a good place to do that with not being so crazy. So, not to contradict myself, but here's how I'd like to explain it. Does anybody remember back to our live streams in the West Village? How crazy that could be? at times, which is a very fun place to go, by the way. In the Village, lots of bars, lots of restaurants. That's really, really crazy nightlife. This is more, you know, sit down, not too much loud music, but it's very, very high trafficked because what do you have right there? That's Times Square. Good restaurants. I'll take you past my favorite one. Bottomless Coffees is what is Restaurant Row. We are walking it right now. This is it. Kitchen 46. Interesting. Hey, Rug Pull is here. Says, hey Tom, could you explain what happened to... I don't know. I'm not familiar with that. I couldn't tell you, to be quite honest. I don't know. I'm not familiar with that stock. I'm assuming it's probably a very small micro-cap stock and probably had very low liquidity, perhaps. This is an interesting place. I feel as if the street looks a lot different since we've been here last. Would you all agree? I feel like there was a lot more scaffolding the last time we walked here. Hey, Joe Driver's here. What's up, Joe? Good to see you. We were just talking about the Federal Reserve a little bit. We talked about SPACs. And then we have to review existing home sales because the National Association of Realtors released the existing home sales report today. But this is my favorite restaurant in the city. It's called Becco, B-E-C-C-O. I would recommend it. It's not too expensive. So I think photos from around New York put in the chat of another Italian restaurant called Carbone. You're gonna probably spend an arm and a leg there, and it's very hard to get in. I would argue this place is just as good, if not better. And look at the prices. They're not too bad. I'll try to show you guys some of the prices. Let me know in the chat if you could see the prices, because I can't tell with the glare. But I'll tell you what I get. I get the pasta trio. I think it's $29.95. And you get 3 pastas, so they come around with essentially unlimited pasta. And then you get an antipasta, and then you get a dessert. Very good place. Very good place to take clients.
Oh,
hey, no, I'm sorry, man. Holy crap, that guy scared the hell out of me. Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, the prices are decent. But that's what I'd get. I think it's 30 bucks. You get a choice of antipasta or salad. You always get the antipasta. It's a rookie move not to. I mean, I don't know why you would. And then they have 3 specific pastas that they make fresh here. And they come around until you're full. It's a fantastic place. And yeah, that's the recommendation. Maybe you could see a little bit into the dining room. It actually looks like it's closed. Or maybe it's just a slow night. I'm not sure what time it is. I think they're usually open to midnight, right? I don't know. What do you guys think? Thumbs up, thumbs down on Restaurant Row. We haven't been here in a long time. I always try to recommend good places. And Becco's a fun experience, right? It's not going to be that like 5-star dining experience where it's a little bit too snobby, if you guys know what I mean. You know, you can bring a family, you can bring your friends and just have a good time, but the food is going to be fantastic. That's why I like it. It's not like going to Per Se where you have to, you know, wear a 3-piece suit. And the food portions are like the size of a, you know, like bird food. Okay, now we are on 9th Avenue. I think I'll take you guys over to 10th Avenue. And maybe we'll actually check out the water. Because the further over we go, we'll be far enough where we'll be able to see a pretty nice view of the World Trade Center. I think it's Well, we'll see. Let's see. It looks like, wow, look at all that traffic. It looks like it's a clear enough night where you guys could probably see the Trade Center. Now, all this traffic is headed towards the tunnel. The further west we go, you're gonna be able to see the buildings in Times Square. That's the New York Times building. But we'll go down one more and we'll make a right. Hey, Surfboard is here. What's up? SPACS Carnival, that stinks. SPACS Carnival is like you can't have pasta due to a gluten allergy. They probably have some gluten-free options. I mean, it's New York. Damn, I feel bad, man. Don't worry, SPACS Carnival. The next time I go to Becco, I'll see if they have a gluten-free option, and if they don't, I'll push for it. I'll lobby for it. You have your personal Walks on Wall Street lobbyist. Hey, GGNYC, what's up? Brody23 is here, Meld. Good to see you guys. Now, I forget, last night, did we talk about Bitcoin? I don't know if we did or not. I was either gonna plan to do that tonight and also talk about gold and silver. I don't know if we reviewed the price action there, but I think it's interesting to follow the policy on this as it relates to the SEC, so the Securities and Exchange Commission. For those of you who are not following, Gary Gensler is the head of the SEC, and he has been very, very lax with providing regulatory clarity in the particular, I should just say, the cryptocurrency space. So over the past couple weeks, there's been some pretty notable headlines, right? Number one with Binance, and number two with Coinbase, and I think with Gemini as well. For those of you who don't know, Gemini is an exchange that's actually founded by the Winklevoss twins. You may be familiar with them from the movie Facebook, right? Social network. Look at this thing. I think this is some sort of a dive bar here. Love the original fire escapes on these buildings. But anyway, you know, Bitcoin sold off on that news quite harshly. And I put out a tweet when it was selling off. I said, look, there's so many market participants that confuse Binance, Coinbase, and Gemini with Bitcoin. They think it's all the same thing, and it's not. So you had this big shakeout down to the 200-day moving average, and now Bitcoin's actually been rallying pretty hard. I think we're trading now, what, 29,000, 29,950, I think? I think we briefly broke 30,000 for a short time. So I think that's encouraging price action, which we'll watch. Hey, Crypto Meme, what's up? What's your take on all that? Crypto Meme with the SEC debacle? Hey, Deborah is here. This is Tom. Ruby's is another great bar. They used to hand out free hot dogs. Don't know if they still do. Wow. Was that the one that we just passed with the pig over there? Yeah, you're right. Interesting. Free hot dogs there. I didn't know that. I'm not a big bar guy, so I'm not too familiar with a lot of these, but I'd check that out. I'll let you know. Maybe I'll head over there this weekend. JM says you have to look at the movie Taxi Driver to see how bad these streets all were back in the day. Now looking at it in 2023, it's paradise. That's actually a really good point. I haven't seen Taxi Driver, but I know what you're talking about. You know, you can't even compare, you know, what it was in terms of like the crime to back in the day. New York City is an extremely, extremely safe city comparing it to, you know, the 70s, even the 80s and the late 90s, right? But if you guys are enjoying the live stream so far tonight, feel free to leave a like on the video and click the subscribe button if you're new. We do these live streams starting at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, live from New York, where we explore the city, talk about the financial markets, and point out notable buildings. We'll go down one more and then I'm gonna make a right. I wanna take you guys all the way to the water. Now, when we get to the water, we're gonna see, well, hopefully, I won't promise, but hopefully we'll see amazing views all the way to Lower Manhattan. I think we'll actually be able to see the Intrepid, perhaps. Yeah, Harry Connor says the 80s were rough. Many of you in the chat were probably in New York during that time. This place looks like it went out of business, or they're just about to open something here. Crypto Meme says there's a reason that BlackRock has been getting into it. They've been accumulating. So are you referring to the news that they've registered for the spot Bitcoin ETF? Is that what you're referring to? It's a good point, right? I think that, what is the old saying? Do as they do, not as they say. Now, I will play devil's advocate a little bit, but I agree with you, but for the sake of the stream, I'll play devil's advocate a little bit. But I agree with you 100%, Crypto Meme. Has anybody ever heard the saying? And I think this saying first came about in the book Common Stocks and Uncommon Profits. Anybody familiar with that book? And this book is, I mean, arguably one of the best investment books ever written. So Common Stocks and Uncommon Profits by Phil Fisher, the founder of Fisher Investments. His son now runs the firm. But in the book, I think it's this book, I may be misquoting it, so apologize if I'm doing any mischaracterization. But in the book, it's written that if the people want it, Wall Street's going to create a product for it. And why is that? If we think back to the beginning of the live stream, we were talking about all the SPACs, right? You know, Wall Street, thinking about the big investment banks, they make their money off of fee income, right? If they're going to do advisory fees, if they're going to take a fee, if they're going to take a company public, or maybe they're doing, equity underwriting deals, refinances, they just only care about generating fee income. So if Main Street and even institutional players, family offices, hedge funds want a way to speculate on the price of Bitcoin through an ETF, well, Wall Street is going to provide you with that opportunity. Why? Because it makes the money. There's probably going to be, big expense ratio on these products, big fees. So once again, follow the money on that. All right, we've made it to 42nd Street. This is the main street here that'll lead you in the heart, the belly of the beast, Times Square. This is 42nd Street and 9th Avenue. The further west we go, the quieter it gets. The further west we go, the quieter it gets. This is the back of the Port Authority bus terminal, which is a very, very frightening place. So we are going to head west and go all the way to the water. We're going to go as far as we can until we can't walk anymore. And you'll notice, I want to quickly point this out, because we're about to talk about housing. Notice all the original buildings that was on 8th Avenue, right, or 9th Avenue. A lot of the original brownstones, a lot of the original railroad buildings that we walked past. The further west you go, check it out. All new developments, brand new architecture, brand new luxury condominiums. And the further west we go, the more of these that are going to be popping up. If you think about the Hudson Yards development, which is on 34th Street, that area used to look so different, guys, just 7 years ago. I would say 7 to 10 years ago. it's sort of the same is happening all up the west side of New York, stretching all the way to John Jay College. So for those of you who don't know, John Jay College is a CUNY college in the City University of New York system that sits on 59th Street. Closest train station is Columbus Circle. So I would say at the very top of Hell's Kitchen, right? And back in the day, that area was very rough, but not anymore. All near John Jay College, all the way up to 59th Street, are all these ultra luxury residential high-rise buildings. And it essentially starts at 34th Street, Hudson Yards, and goes all the way up the west side to 59th Street. And it's even starting to penetrate the Upper West Side too. Speaking of the Hudson Yards, you could actually see some of the Hudson Yards development here in the distance. Hey, Long Island Duck 52 is here. Good to see you. Bottomless Coffee says, did you want to be a lawyer when you went to John Jay? No, I didn't want to be a lawyer. I wanted to be in the NYPD. I wanted to be a police officer. That's what I really wanted to do. But life happens, right? And in a big city like New York, you never know what you're going to do. That's why I always say, when you're young, and I still consider 18 years old like a kid, right? Looking back, I'm 28 years old now. Looking back at like 18, you're like you're a little kid. You think you know what you want to do, and you think you know what you're gonna wind up doing. You don't. You just got to go with the flow and let life take you where it's gonna take you, right? Because you're gonna meet people, you're gonna network, you're gonna find different industries. So I went from wanting to be in the NYPD to tech sales, right? So most recently as a director of enterprise sales at a tech company, like the polar opposite. But the path that I wanted to do is go to the NYPD and then maybe work for the federal government, working on like money laundering cases or tracking money laundering. So I took some forensic accounting classes there, which were fun. That was fun. I like doing that. That does help a little bit, by the way, when you're doing securities analysis, a tad bit. But yeah, it's not the path I took. Okay, welcome to 10th Avenue, my friends. Hey, JM, thank you. Wow, dude, you didn't have to do that, my friend. But thank you so much for your $50 donation. I appreciate that very much. You definitely do not have to do that, but I do appreciate your support and it means a lot. But you did not have to do that at all. Please do not feel obligated to give me any money, but thank you so much for that, JM. I appreciate it. Very, very much, I appreciate it. This is Lincoln Center parking. Why would that say that? Lincoln Center is so far. Lincoln Center is all the way in like 66th Street. This is 42nd Street. Random shrieking, FredX. That's isn't that one of your things, FredX? On the drinking game, random shrieking. I think that counts. Somebody was shrieking over there. All right, I'll quickly point out the contrast once again. So no, this is the corner of 10th Avenue. This is what the neighborhood used to look like, guys. All of these buildings, very low rise. And now everything is pretty much being redeveloped. Here's an even, I'm gonna find out what is this building for you guys. It looks like another ultra luxury residential building going up. Hey, Melissa 2087. Melissa 2087 says it's 64 degrees. You know what's crazy? The fact that it's 64 degrees and it's the first day of summer. Excuse me, the second day of summer. It's the second day of summer, right? Not the first day. The first day was yesterday. Anyway, I'm actually a little chilly, not gonna lie. But I think the reason for that is because if for those non-Miamians, right, if you haven't been to Miami, Florida, or even just Florida in general in the summer, it is extremely hot and humid. I'm talking like, when I was in Miami, I think it was 85 degrees, but with the humidity and the dew point, it felt like 101. It wasn't 101 degrees, but it felt like it. So to come from 101 degrees, feeling like it, to 64, I mean, I'm shivering today. I couldn't believe it. I woke up and I was cold, if you could believe that. Oh, look at the original NYPD police station. Look at how unique that looks. That's true too. Hawaii's like you're getting closer to the water, so it's cooler over there. That's true. Sparks Carnival says I'm bullish on MongoDB after today's partnership with Google. I applied for a job there back in the day. I didn't get it. MongoDB pays their account executives very well. I didn't get the job. Very, very tough competition for MongoDB. I think the ticker symbol is MDB. Is that right? Yeah, Tug Carter says, Tom, we've had a very mild spring and summer so far in Georgia. I mean, hopefully it gets cranking soon. I know a lot of you guys don't like it super hot. I do. I think the picture perfect New York City day for me is 91 degrees and very humid. That's like a perfect New York City day to me. And I know many of you are cringing at that, but it's what I like. After work, you take the train out to Long Island. You go to Jones Beach, Robert Moses, Tobay. It's a good time. It's a good time. Oh, this is what we're talking about, my friends. Look at that. Great view of the new Hudson Yards development. This is actually a bang-on view. This is perfect. It almost kind of looks out of place, does it not? Because we're looking at it from the northernmost side. So you have all of these low-level buildings, which I think these buildings are owned by the city because it's obviously the NYPD. And then everything around it is being redeveloped into these monstrosities. Now, we'll talk about real estate a little bit because I was getting a little bit off topic. We touched on commercial real estate briefly yesterday on the live stream. What you're seeing in New York City is an extremely bifurcated market. So what do I mean by that? Well, you look at all these buildings in the Hudson Yards. The majority of them, I shouldn't say the majority, but a lot of them are Class A commercial office space. So these are the most sought after and the most coveted office buildings in the city, with a couple exceptions of 425 Park Avenue, which we looked at yesterday. Now, the vacancy rates for commercial office in New York City is hitting all-time record highs, but the vacancy rates in Class A office properties are actually pretty low, because what you're seeing is a mass migration of big companies. Right, I always give this example of KPMG moving their headquarters from the east side of Manhattan to the Hudson Yards. I think BlackRock, right? We talked a little bit about BlackRock today. They moved their headquarters to the Hudson Yards. Many, many others. I think Qualtrics has their New York City headquarters there. So a lot of these older buildings, right? I would say the Class B office that were built in the 1980s and maybe even the early 1990s that have very low ceiling heights, very outdated, those are going to be a big problem. And as we talked about at the very, very beginning of this live stream, interest rates are going up in the United States. Now, the FOMC meeting, which is the Federal Open Market Committee meeting, just happened 2 weeks ago. The Fed decided to pause their rate hiking cycle, but yesterday, the Federal Reserve Chairman, Jerome Powell, actually testified before Congress. And he said it's pretty much a unanimous decision that the majority of Fed presidents are in agreement that there will be another interest rate hike in July. So what does that mean for commercial real estate? Well, the vast majority of the debt needs to be refinanced on a lot of this commercial real estate. And that's a big problem because money's not cheap anymore. the era of ZIRP, zero interest rate policy, is long gone. So as you go to renew, or I should say refinance this debt, it's not going to be at 2% rates. It's not going to be at 3% rates. It's going to be much, much higher than that, and potentially even double digits. And that's coming at a time when office vacancy is at all-time record highs. So the city is going to need to work together with developers and owners of this property to either give incentives on conversions, right? Convert a lot of this office space to residential, or do something with it, because if not, I think a lot of these deals are either going to go back to the banks, and many of them will probably sell for land value. And when it's affordable enough to do the demolitions, they'll probably just demo these buildings and just rebuild new ones. So it's interesting, and that's, you know, essentially what you're seeing, a big flight to quality. You know, if you're going to coerce your employees back to the office, they're going to go here, right, to the Hudson Yards. They're not going to work out of a little dingy office building like this. We'll go over one more. We'll walk over one more. Oh yeah, Bree Grams, you're right. We started the stream late, which I apologize. Does anybody know what time it is? Can we do a quick time check in the chat? I started at 9. I think I started at 9 o'clock. So what, it's probably 10:30, almost 11 o'clock. Hey, Cynthia Beal is here. Long time no see. Good to see you, Cynthia. Thank you. Photos from around New York, 10:30. All right, now here is a perfect example of all of these ultra luxury apartment buildings near the west side. All brand new. You can only imagine the amenities in here. You probably have pools, you have arcades, you have gyms, pretty much everything. Wayne McKay, good to see you. We've been streaming for 74 minutes. Thank you so much. Yeah, John Peacock says, hey Tom, any thoughts on the Titan sub? We touched on that a little bit in the beginning of the stream. It's just unfortunate. You never really want to see things like that, which is, it's just really sad to see, you know? Yeah, I mean, that's really all I could say about it. I was looking into the story probably about 2 days ago, and it's just a tragedy. And I don't want to jump to any conclusions, because this is what I call the fog of war stage, where there's a lot of fake news floating around. But what it appears to be is that the CEO of this company cut a lot of corners. Now, I'm not an engineer. I don't claim to be an engineer. I know nothing about aquatics. I know nothing about anything, okay? So I'm not the guy to ask for this. But I mean, if that's the case, I mean, that is just, in my eyes, that's unacceptable, man. Because I think there was even like a 19-year-old kid on board too. I mean, if you're going down to the Titanic, you can't be cutting corners on the sub. But again, I don't know. I don't think we've confirmed any of that. I don't know. So, but it's heartbreaking. It's unfortunate, because, you know, we're all human, and it's sad. It's horrible. Well, we've officially made it. This is Pier 83 and Pier 81. Welcome, friends. All right. 2 points to anybody who can guess what this is. Anybody know what that big ship is right here? Who could guess? Hey, B Cruise is here, so they did stuff that was not done in the field. Yeah, I mean, that's what it seems like. I don't know. I'm not going to make any conclusive comments on it, because, you know, it's a tragedy. People died, and it's not good. Yeah, Jean Paul, the Intrepid. Let's check out the Intrepid tonight. Might as well. I'm a little bummed out that I wasn't able to check it out for Fleet Week. I left right in the middle of Fleet Week. I had to go back to Miami. Yeah, but this is the USS Intrepid. Hopefully they have some planes and cool stuff on it for you guys to see. But this is the West Side Highway. When is the last time I've taken you guys on the West Side Highway? Last summer? Because I do not come over here. I'll tell you guys this. I very, very seldom. Let me just try not to get hit by this car. Very, very seldom do I ever come to the West Side on the water, right on the Hudson River, in the winter. Because it is extremely freezing and the wind is brutal. But it is gorgeous, and I'm talking absolutely gorgeous in the summer. Now, our friends over in New Jersey are just right across the water there. Hudson River actually looks pretty still tonight. Let's see if we see any fish jumping around in the water. But here you could see the entire Hudson Yards development. Hey, Raptor423 says hello from New Jersey. Good to see all of our Jersey viewers. You guys are right across the water there. Well, check out the Intrepid. I think this is a cool shot too. Look at this. This is literally looking directly down 42nd Street. So if you remember from our live streams, this is the, well, you have the H&M building and then you have the Bank of America Tower, which is Bryant Park. So we always do our stream probably about 6 blocks that way. It's kind of cool to see it looking directly down into Times Square. Let's explore what this is. Pier 83 South. Is this one of the ferries that go to New Jersey? Anybody know? Let's see. Seems like there's a lot of people waiting. What does it say? It says, welcome aboard, Circle Line. Best of New York City, cruise all the way around the landmarks. See Manhattan and 130 landmarks. So maybe it's more of like a tourist attraction. Now, I'll give you guys a New York City pro tip. Instead of paying to take a tour, like a boat tour, just take the one train all the way to the South Ferry Terminal, which is the Staten Island Ferry. So just take the one train all the way to the end, and Staten Island Ferry is free, and you have unobstructed views of all Lower Manhattan, Brooklyn Bridge, Manhattan Bridge, and the Verrazano Bridge. We've done that many times on the live stream. Now, here's some crazy context for you all. Does anybody want to guess what those two buildings are right here? Well, the big monstrosity to the left is Central Park Tower, which is actually where we started the stream. We started the stream all the way over there. Now, that is a Gary Barnett development from the Extel Group. But the building right here is actually Steinway Tower. The address is 111 West 57th Street, and it is the tallest and skinniest residential apartment building in the world. Right here on New York City's Billionaires Row, visible from Hudson River Park. Kind of cool. So you guys are starting to see the perception of the city, right? As we do these streams, you can sort of map the city out, you know, on your own. The building with the blue top, that's actually One Vanderbilt. This would probably be a little bit easier to get around on the skateboard. Maybe we'll do that this weekend. because there doesn't seem to be too many people here. So we could probably crush on the skateboard all through here, check out the Intrepid. We'll go down to Wall Street. I think that'd be cool. Dan Zhang says, Tom, how much longer do you think it's going to take Ryan Serhant to sell the $250 million penthouse? I don't think it'll trade at 250. I'll just say that. Will it sell? Yes. I think it will sell. But I don't think it'll trade at 250. But I do think they'll get the deal done. I'm trying to get you guys a good view of the Intrepid. There's so many trees here. I think you could see some of the fighter jets on it too. All right, here we go. And then I got to run you guys through the existing home sales data, but we'll do that in a minute. We covered a lot tonight. All right, scale of 1 to 10, what do you guys think? You are now looking at the Intrepid, former aircraft carrier in the U.S. Navy fleet. I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10 for our service members. 11. Okay. Not bad. I think it's a nice contrast too with the clouds in the sky. Hey, Andy is here from South Korea. What's up, Andy? All right, let me try to zoom in on some of these planes for you guys. Let me know how it's coming out. I think you could see some of the fighter jets on the aircraft carrier. Hey, Lorene Peters is here. Lorene, what's up? Now, do we have any veterans in the chat? Any veterans? Now, my dad actually served on the USS Carl Vinson, which is CVN 70, which is in our nuclear arsenal in the US Navy. And that was actually the exact ship that carried Osama bin Laden. Little fun fact for you guys there. The reflection of the water looks really cool too. Yeah, Skip Pilot 11 says, is it a museum? Yeah, it's a museum now. I don't think it's a functional aircraft carrier anymore. I think it's just docked here forever, pretty much. And during Fleet Week, you'll have additional ships come in, right? Unfortunately, I missed like half of Fleet Week this year, which is a bummer, but you know, there's always next year. Now, this is an even better view of Billionaires Row. This gives us an additional Billionaires Row building. The one with the gold top is 220 Central Park South, which over the Memorial Day weekend, we actually just had a sale go into contract for $75 million in that building. Wow, Tracy says, my husband served 3 years on the USS Carl Vinson. Wow, small world. Very cool. Well, thank him for his service for me. All right, let's head back in. Hold on, I wanted to zoom in on the anchor. Look at that. Just for some perspective, look at how massive that anchor is. That's wild. I think they're closing up too, just in time. I think they're closing up the park. All right, one more shot of the Intrepid and then we'll boogie on out of here. We'll head back this way. Maybe we'll end it at the Hudson Yards. Wow, Michael Joseph's F-16 Falcon on top. Very cool, love that. Yeah, JM, the USS Carl Vinson stations in San Diego. That is true. I think it's called the Nimitz carrier because it's a nuclear powered carrier. Yeah, I think Navy Nuke School is one of the hardest schools in the Navy. And for anybody watching who's looking for a very good career, you know, the United States and abroad too, we actually have a shortage of nuclear engineers. Anybody know that? That's actually one of the big problems. And we've talked about this a lot on Walks on Wall Street. Obviously, nuclear power is like the end all be all. If you were really serious about solving climate change, you would go all in on nuclear power. But there's actually a shortage of nuclear trained engineers to build, develop, and run these power plants. So if you're looking for a job that's going to be in demand over the next decade, look into becoming a nuclear engineer. Lily said, what's the name of that place? This is the Intrepid. The Intrepid on Hudson River Park. Let me adjust the brightness. All right, so we'll quickly run through this data. So the National Association of Realtors released existing home sales. And existing home sales actually increased a little bit on a month-over-month basis. So month-over-month, existing home sales rose about 0.2% at an annualized sales pace of about 4.30 million units. Now, on a year-over-year basis, sales were down 20.4%. So on a year-over-year basis, sales transactions, right, so of existing homes, right, not new homes, were down 20%, which makes sense, right, because we are in an extremely high interest rate environment. But here's the interesting thing. If you look at the median home sales price for May, it was $396,100, about 3.1% lower than this time last year. And I think that's actually quite resilient, would you say? You know, you have this huge compression in sales transactions, but prices aren't going down as much as, you know, just to be fair, that I had expected. Now, the reason for that is because supply remains extremely, extremely low in the United States for existing home sales. So if you look at the housing market, inventory actually declined yet again. If you think about this time last year, the market has 39% fewer homes for sale than before COVID. So we definitely have a supply problem. And another crazy statistic is that out of all of the Americans, or all of the people who own property in the United States with a mortgage, okay? Hold on, let me cross. We got the M12 bus that's going to Columbus Circle. If you look at all of the homes in the United States that have a mortgage, about 91.8% of all those homes have an interest rate below 6%, which would make sense, right? So the theory is maybe that's part of the reason why inventories are so low. Why would anybody sell their home now, even if they have a lot of equity? Because they would just have to go right back into the marketplace where there's no inventory. And if they're not going to pay cash for the property, well, money is twice as expensive as it was this time last year. So, you know, I think that's one of the main reasons why we really haven't seen this big decline in residential real estate values is because, number one, there needs to be a catalyst for these people to move. And unemployment is at the lowest rate pretty much in US history. So the only real catalyst that I could think of that would prompt or force people to sell their homes would be if there's massive job loss in this country and people can't afford to make their mortgage payments, which is kind of hard to argue for, being that unemployment's at what, 3.4%? I don't know, any thoughts there? Hey, Carol H, what's up? This is Hey Tom and Friends. What's up, Carol? Yeah, we were just talking about the existing home sales report today. It's kind of crazy to think 91.6% of all people who have mortgages outstanding in the US right now, their interest rate's below 6%. I think that's going to prompt people to stay put for longer. And that's probably a reason why, if you look at the stock market, right, if you look at the equity market, the share prices of home builders, right, like Pulte Group, Taylor Morrison Home, Toll Brothers, all of these stocks are trading near 52-week highs and all-time record highs because the market is essentially perceiving this as there's a huge shortage of supply, and the only way you're going to get more supply on the market is not going to be coming from the existing home sales market, as it's proven. It's going to come from new home sales. So I think you're going to see more transactions, potentially, or an uptick in transactions in the new home sales market. But I don't know, what are you guys seeing in your specific markets where you are? Are you still seeing bidding wars? Are you seeing prices cool a little bit? Now again, prices are down about 3% year over year, but that's still elevated, right? Because prices went up an unbelievable amount during COVID. Hey, Star Fox, what's up? Victor says construction materials could come down in the cost with new builds. Possible. Hey, hang with Mark Mom. Good to see you. Welcome. Yeah, I think KB Home. So I believe the ticker symbol is KBH. KB Home is another big home builder in the United States. They reported earnings yesterday. Good quarter, decent quarter, but we don't have enough time today to go through that earnings report. But there was a lot of thought-provoking data in that report, particularly how these companies are getting deals done. It's coming from a lot of concessions. So there is a little bit of pressure on gross margins to move product. So a concession would be, maybe they're paying down the points on a mortgage, they're throwing in free, things in the home. But from a lot of the home builder earnings reports that we've been seeing, they've been okay. But the way that they're getting deals done is they're being a little bit more creative because rates are still elevated. Now, if somebody's just looking to buy, and we got to cut the stream short here in a moment, but if somebody's just focused on getting the lowest interest rate possible, I think the window you have is like the next 30 days, because Fed Chair Jerome Powell testified before Congress yesterday. I would highly advise everybody to go back and watch that testimony, because he said specifically that out of all of the voting members, great view of the Empire State Building, my God, out of all the voting members of the Federal Reserve, right, so out of all the Fed presidents, the vast majority are in conclusion, or the consensus is that there's going to be at least one more rate hike of 25 basis points in July, which would raise rates again, which would bring the Fed funds target rate to 5.25% to 5.5%, which means mortgage rates will probably go up, right? There's not a direct correlation between the Fed raising rates and a 30-year fixed going up. The yield curve will adjust, and the 30-year fixed is loosely benchmarked from the 10-year US Treasury, right? So the 30-year fixed rate mortgage will trade on a spread over the 10-year. But guys, I gotta call it early tonight. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming out and hanging out with us tonight here at Walks on Wall Street. If you're new here, feel free to leave a like on the video. You can connect with us offline by looking in the links in the description, sign up for our newsletter, follow us on Twitter, and click the subscribe button if you're new. And I'll probably see you all on Sunday because I have 2 events that I have to go to tomorrow, and then Saturday I have a big event. So we may be off for the next 2 days. But hang with Mark Mom, appreciate you joining. Wendy, England, Brian, Zozo, Bob, out and about. John, always appreciate it. FredX, as always. JM, thank you so much for your donation. Lena, Steph UH, Tracy, appreciate it. Adrian, Susanna Q4, John Kelly, Spencer. There's always a bull market somewhere. You just need to know where to look. And hopefully I'll see you guys tomorrow, but if not, we will see you back here live from New York on Sunday. Take it easy, everybody.